my question to you is, do you have a belief that is semi-important or interesting or something you think people would want to know about?
Well, I don't know about people wanting to know, but certainly I have, well-established beliefs, yes.
Sure. What would be, what do you think is the role? I'm open for science, theology, philosophy.
I would say there's nothing particularly out of the ordinary, as far certainly orthodox as far as science and that sort of thing is concerned. Theology is a little more interesting. I've actually been investigating a lot more here at St. John's Episcopal and up at the Washington National Cathedral and so forth, right? I come from a more conservative or traditional religious background. These are what I would call more liberal or modern, at least, in their denominational approach and their theology and so forth. But
okay.
Kind of
interested. You said you come from a more conservative theology. Can I ask what religion?
Southern Baptist, I guess.
Southern
That's the
Baptist.
college that I went to, yep.
Oh,
and most of my family, too.
And can you tell me maybe a little bit about Southern Baptism?
Well, that would be a little difficult to do in a short thing. But yeah, it is a traditional evangelical and a conservative type of denomination. What I'm fascinated by here, though, I guess I can talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
This is a time in our country where people really need to start understanding the other side of things, so to speak. You know, you may have heard one point of view all of your life, you know, whether that's a Republican or a Libertarian or a Democrat position or something like that, or in religious traditions as well. It's time to start listening to the other guys, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Start getting a little broader in your perspective on things, you know. Well, I don't mean you have to absolutely agree or automatically jump over to their side, but it's time to start talking.
But I think you should be able to maybe understand the other person's point of view.
That's going on that I think is really a problem. So I'm at least in my family, one of the guys reaching across the aisle, so to speak, starting to understand more liberal religious positions, getting along well with more liberal positions and so forth. You know. And then I suppose that applies politically too, whether I agree or not. At least I'm willing to have open discussions and learn things.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's how you end up having a stronger theology anyway. It's the people that don't explore their ideas that it's more like a house of cards.
True. Yep.
I'm trying to think. So you see it maybe more as we're in a very politically divided times.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that's controversial.
Yeah, no, I think that most people would agree with that.
It's time to stop, just trying to, bash the other side all the time and try to, right. It's time to start understanding, especially, and that's a valuable thing, because I moved to Washington just about a year ago.
Oh,
and,
cool.
The opportunity to be in a much more liberal environment, that sort of thing, is a good opportunity to really learn about the, things.
And so I'm just interested, and you don't have to say exactly where, but did you come from a more rural or?
I would call it a more rural part of California. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So California is a divided state in some ways, There's the more liberal parts around it, right? But I grew up in Orange County, which is a more, it is an urban but conservative county. That has shifted over the course of the years, of course. But so more recently, I was up in the Central Valley area, California. Definitely the more rural and conservative
Now, I
part.
can't help but ask, because I tend to lean more moderate, more almost trying to understand, but there seems to be, what do you think about this, not exodus to Texas, but people going, because California both has all the media, it's a good media empire, you can do whatever you want, but then you're talking about century. Exactly. Woo-hoo.
We've made a living there for a while.
Oh, really?
Not very well, but we did.
Hey, that's kind of cool though.
Whole family event.
But it seems like you were almost like, not saying do the opposite, because you could find purple people here, but you came here to kind of diversify your views.
In part, at least, one of my daughters got a really good job out here.
Oh,
and,
cool.
She's physically handicapped, so I decided to come out with her to help her out for a while, and then everybody else is coming out in about a year. So.
See, that's really awesome, though.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
And so, I'm trying to think where to go from politics, a conservative, Southern Baptist,
But I've always been libertarian and open-minded about most, policies,
Sure.
both religiously and and politically.
I sometimes get some flack for this, but I like libertarians because I always view them as the liberal side of conservatives. They're like kind of the do whatever you want, just don't mess with my pocketbook, but do whatever you want.
Not bad.
And
leave people alone. In other words, we're okay.
Exactly, freedom.
Right. And let people do it. That's right. I'm not sure I would exactly describe myself as a libertarian with a capital L. I think the party is a bit too far, out there, so to speak.
Sure.
But what I think is we need to begin with a much more freedom-oriented perspective. Let's start with letting everybody do what they want to do, and then if you need to convince me that that is somehow encroaching upon other people, okay, we'll talk about putting certain restrictions on certain behaviors. But what we need is a lot more of a shift toward individuality and freedom and
It's
opportunity.
that freedom. But yeah, it's always once people start getting into parties, that's the crazy thing. So just another more minute or so, just because we are not to get too spicy, but we're a very skeptical channel. I kind of like that, though you'll find actually that we have conservatives, liberals, libertarians, anarchists, everything in between. And so if you had to give me maybe your pitch on why be a Southern Baptist, why screw the Catholic Church, why Southern Baptism?
In a nutshell, I would say let's go ahead and get you started on a church that has a foundation that is written and in Scripture and based upon a rather literal interpretation. For anybody who's interested in beginning, start with a conservative approach to God and a personal relationship, and then you can adapt and diversify and bring in other traditions and cultural aspects and things like that. That's fine. Go ahead and find your niche, so to speak, right? But start out with the relationship part first. It's not about conversion, it's more about connection, Get connected to God, the rest of it, you'll work it out,
Okay.
Okay.
That sounds fantastic. I want to thank you. I'd like to ask, or you can say, my name is Amy Newman. You can actually find my channel there. It gets spicy. We're kind of a debate channel. We're always interested in people's views. But that was fantastic. Thank you for being so open-minded. It is Amy Newman. And you can see my podcast right there and join us.
Yeah.
And so what I really want to know is, do you have a belief that's just really important to you? The science, theology, philosophy, something you could
not particularly. I
No?
don't feel like that. But I mean, I believe in science. But
so, there you go.
yes, but I mean, it depends like who made the science and how is it made, and I feel it's
Sure.
easy to trick the science. And I believe in philosophy, but once again, who made the philosophy and how is it made and how is it go? So I feel also there, and I feel at a certain point I believe in something spiritual, but I feel it's something that need to be personal, and this is yeah.
And so it's almost like different buckets. We got science and philosophy and
So
spirituality.
I feel it all come together, but to describe it, to explain to someone else, it's the need to use those words and to use those things that as a society agree that was philosophy, this is spirituality, and this is politics or whatever. But I feel like as a human, this is just one experience life that I have, and I deal with that. But if I have to explain it, then I will use those words. Yeah.
Okay, kind of like emergent.
Mhm.
It all comes together to form the human experience.
I mean, we just have one human experience, and what I'm
I agree.
experiencing with my sense, with my culture, my genetics, and whatever is make me as a human experience, I feel this is a single experience, and it cannot be taken, or it cannot be. It can be shared by like talking to someone, but it cannot be truly lived by another person. But I feel it's important to share it and to have a common vision of what we are, because if we don't have this, then we're kind of lost, and we cannot cooperate as a society. So yeah, I feel it's important that as humans we believe in something, whatever the name is, if we want to agree with stuff and collaborate.
Exactly. So maybe not the words of it could be a higher power, but maybe a higher cause. Something just to live for is what it sounds like you're saying.
Something we need to all agree for, and then that we can go forward as a society. Maybe we all agree that money exists. We all agree that there is a form of government. We all agree that some stuff are good and some stuff are bad, because this is how we can cooperate together. So yeah, I feel the need of cooperate created this thing that we can give 100 names.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I think there's, you could have maybe, not to get highly technical, but you could have zero-sum games. You could have games where people are winning or losing, or you could have cooperative games. I completely am on the side of us coming together and just working towards our goals. Mm-hmm. I think that's where basically everything awesome in human civilizations come from.
Yeah, and I mean, it's changing. It's just as a human civilization, what our goal, what we're looking for is changing over the times. And I feel like as long as we cooperate and we not start to destroy each other, it's good. As my opinion. Yeah.
And okay, so I'm trying to think of I kind of like, I would say, your philosophy of science, and I'm trying to think if I should go somewhere.
You can try. I mean,
so I'm trying to think if I should go where I'm going to go where maybe somewhere I disagree, even though for everything I hear, I have liked everything. But for the sake of being spicy, what would you kind of view spirituality as?
My spirituality?
Yes, to go.
So I feel sometimes, like as a person, I cannot explain stuff around me, and there's a lot of empty of like stuff that I don't have the answer, and to continue and to feel comfortable and to feel safe, well, I need to find a reason. So it can be to blame it on the chance, or blame it on the not being lucky, right? Or it could be just a way to agree that it's kind of normal and find a way, and this way that I cannot see it, but I will name it will be my spirituality.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it almost seems like it is the veil, as you may not know something, but it is kind of like the ever receding pocket that we're humans are constantly learning and exploring and coming together to bring it back to that original point.
Yeah.
And okay, I kind of like that. And then I'm trying to think if I could come it back to some place where we may agree. I'll see if we have an interesting answer. A lot of the channel tends to be very skeptic. We are always, we view ourselves as free thinkers, even though even that term sounds a little condescending when you say it out loud. But I guess my question would be, what do you think of the term skepticism or being a skeptic? Does that mean anything to you?
Being skeptic about someone's belief or about
yes, in fact, our little community, we tend to be skeptical, not to just say rah-rah against institutions, but a lot of the religious institutions or...
But I think this is like the whole point of democracy and free speeches. Mm-hmm. So if it happens, it's kind of a good sign, right? It means that we as people have the freedom to be skeptic or to question and to use the media to share ideas that maybe are controversial. So, or that people could agree and start like movement. And I think this is like the whole point of what we as a society lead to see it like something we should be scared of and to something we want to shut out. It depends. Sometimes I feel it's being used to shut up an opinion. So,
sure.
So what's the balance between like this skepticism? It's used as a form of hate, like for a group or for an idea, or is it being used as a real like freedom speeches? Like I feel like as a human, as right now, I feel this is why we need to fight for. We need to be free of speeches, and sometimes it's weird or it's no like we don't understand, and it's okay. It don't mean we need to give it hate, as long as it's like part of like the freedom of speech.
I like to think of the saying, be skeptical but not cynical. You shouldn't, if you're mean or rude towards every new idea that comes in, then you're actually missing a truth that may dramatically affect your life.
Right.
And so, like you were saying, I think freedom is kind of the key word here. I think that we should be talking about different ideas, just like we're doing here. And I think that when you're actually able to talk with people, you have better conversations. There's less people going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. More people talking with each other.
Yeah, and I feel it's to lead a conversation, to bring conversation further. It's an exercise, like as we do it now, right?
Exactly.
It's and we need to see it as something. It's an exercise, and it's great. I'm happy right here in front of the White House.
Exactly, here in front of the Capitol. And okay, what I would like to ask as a final question, if you had to kind of sum up your belief system and what you're talking about right now, or just the smorgasbord, the emergence that you were just talking about, how would you sell that?
The emergence? What does it mean?
So when I mean emergence, you were kind of talking about how like science and philosophy and spirituality all kind of emerge into kind of what we have as a subjective experience, and then we all come together with those subjective experiences and kind of talk it out and figure out what's going on. And so so what I'll say, do you have any final thoughts on what we've been talking about?
I feel as long as there's speeches and there's not hate toward it, it's good. Like we love that, and it's and just I feel like no hate.
I couldn't agree more. Just keep on spreading love. Well, what did you say your name was?
Jonas.
John, it was lovely to meet you. Like I said, feel free. These will all be uploaded eventually as premieres onto the channel, but we do a lot of live streams and call-in shows. Feel free. It was lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I will go listen to that podcast for sure.
Sure. Thank you so very much. And then I just really want to know, do you have a belief, science, theology, philosophy? Oh,
100%.
Fantastic. So you're team science.
Team science all the way. Yeah. Atheist from a very, very early start.
Fantastic. You're an atheist.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We are actually a skeptic, tend to be leaning agnostic and atheist channel.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Can I ask you, how long have you been an atheist?
Forever. I wasn't born into a family that was religious, so it never really stuck with me.
Okay.
My mom was more like spiritual, and so she wanted to try out different churches and things, but it just all kind of seemed a little bit like storytelling and fairy tales, and it just didn't really stick with me, and it didn't make sense. In the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of science and evidence and reason. So Absolutely. It just, it's always been.
All right, and so you said your mother was spiritual, kind of not religious kind of thing?
Yeah, like we never really went to church, but she wanted to try out different churches to see if there was a church that worked. So I went to the, the youth groups, and I was just excited to get like the bubble gum and the little treats, and that was really it for me.
That's how I was with Hebrew school.
Yeah.
And okay, so just to dig deeper, how is it being an atheist in America?
I don't talk about it.
There you go.
I don't talk about it, really, because it's kind of stigmatized. go out and proselytize about it. I find my groups, my whole friend group, I think is majority atheist as well.
Really?
So we're all very like science oriented and evidence-based people, and so that just kind of belief system sits with us. But I think it's just like an undercurrent where I think it's like a lot of people are skeptical or agnostic or just not Christian, not Catholic, not Jewish, like not really identifying as like the major talked about religions, but we don't really like get out there and like woohoo about it because it just is.
Because it's as far as hairstyles go, it's bald. You don't even think about it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And okay, I just have to ask, even though you're probably going to say yes to all of these,
Sure.
but global warming,
Yeah, it's happening. It's a problem.
evolution,
Obviously.
the Big Bang.
Yeah.
All right, see, I'm trying. It just sounds like science.
Happened.
You're just so sane and rational.
I mean, it's just evidence. That's what the experts have studied for their entire careers, and I don't know anything about it, so I have to trust them and their evidence and their reason and their peer-reviewed studies, and that's the only thing that makes sense, I
even
think.
though those scientists are other people, they're not you. You're getting data from other people.
Yeah, because they're people just like me. They're just people, and that's what they've dedicated their lives to, is just finding. I think the thing about science that I love is just finding out the truth, finding 100%. Out what is actually going on, and having other people validate that. So third parties, independent people being like, oh yeah, we're finding that as well, and I think that's pretty strong evidence. So
being able to remove one's bias.
Yeah, I think trusting the experts.
And I'm trying to think, because you made a good point that like most of us aren't evangelical.
Yeah.
We aren't going door to door to churches and being like, why don't you stop believing in God? So I guess.
Sorry if this is a boring interview.
No. You are. It's actually fantastic because we've had a few spiritual people.
We don't really find many atheists.
Yeah, and so you're the first. Woohoo! That's right. And then I want to. What do you think of? I guess we sometimes have a pushback. I feel like, and I'll go This will be my maybe last spicy question before. I feel like there is a pushback. This is the last swing of the evangelicals, not to get too political, but on certain issues they've been very much aiming for. And so I guess, what are your thoughts on just, in my opinion, this last swing of
talking about abortion rights?
Well,
I mean, you don't have to mince words. Like,
don't mince words. That's right. We are skeptics. We should be talking brave and strong.
Talk about it.
So I feel like the abortion issue. This is the last hurrah. In fact, I feel like it is the Catholic conservative court. I'm sending love to Catholics, to conservatives, whatever, but I do feel like it has been their last swing at what's that book called? At Handmaid's Tale?
Jeez, yeah.
And so, any thoughts on it?
It's really frustrating. It's really frustrating, honestly, because I think a lot of the people who are very vocal about it have not experienced anything like that themselves, and so they have no source of empathy for people who are in that situation. They can be told these things, they can be talked about these things, people spin the message into a murderous floozy, like whatever old school view of women that were just like out getting abortions left and right. Like, that's fucking ridiculous. And it's really frustrating. It just is, I think, a last remnant, one of the remnants of just women being oppressed and women being second class, and I like don't even have words for it, because it's like,
100%.
you know, people are having opinions about things that don't involve them, that they don't know about, that they don't understand, that they are never in the situation where they were raped by their, I haven't been, thankfully, goodness, but like that they were assaulted and impregnated by somebody, and they're suddenly pregnant, and they are then forced to carry that child, and like what life is that providing for the child? Who would want a child to grow up in an environment where they were not wanted, where they were not planned, where they were born out of violence?
Such a horrible situation.
Horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible for the mother, like it's horrible for the child, it's horrible for the entire situation, and it's ridiculous that people are enforcing their views on other people's bodies, on other people's autonomy, when we've fought so hard as women to have a say in anything.
Had to
it's
claw
just
for it, basically.
Yeah, it's just very frustrating and very sad, and it makes me angry. I think if I'm gonna name some feelings, it's angering.
Understandable.
Just a big fuck off. Fuck off. Get out of here. Like, and abortion. Okay, abortion is healthcare. Like,
Absolutely.
Secondly, abortion is healthcare. Like, people die because they go septic, because they aren't allowed. Like, we've been seeing this now, like in states where, you know, there's been significant abortion restrictions, that people have been seriously ill and their lives have been at risk, and doctors can't do anything. They're just watching them and their health decline.
They've been hamstrung.
Yeah, until they can finally do something. And it's like, it's insane. It's insane. Abortion is healthcare. The medications that support reproductive health is healthcare, and we have a right to that healthcare. And it's not okay for other people to be inserting their opinions, their uneducated opinions,
Indeed.
into the thing.
Oh, if it was all doctors, I don't think we would, voting on it, we wouldn't have a problem here.
Right.
All women voting on it.
Yeah. I think, again, it goes back to trusting the science, trusting the doctors, trusting the evidence, trusting
Absolutely.
people to make decisions for themselves based on their own unique circumstances.
And speaking of, thank you so very much, to finish it off on science,
Sure.
if you had to just quickly sum up your beliefs or your belief systems, how you come about them and why, what would you say? And that, if that's too much, we could pick any one of the points of just science, skepticism, atheism, healthcare.
I think critical thinking is really what it comes
Indeed.
down to. I think it's critical thinking. It's, what makes logical sense. What are the experts in the field saying? What are the peer-reviewed findings? And it's okay to not know things. I think that's where people get really uncomfortable,
100%.
and they want to find answers to it, and so that's where religion kind of fills the gaps for me.
Absolutely.
It is what I see in people, and people don't like not knowing, and I think that's kind of what science and evidence and all of that is all about, is understanding what do we know, how can we find out, and what do we still not know. And it's okay to not know things, and that's the whole thing behind it, is we're finding out new things every day. We try and learn. It's a philosophy of learning and being okay with the uncertainty, and I think that is why I really love science and why I really trust it, because people are comfortable in the uncertainty and not knowing.
It's the only way you can actually find out, is if you admit you don't know something.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And okay, I don't want you to dox yourself, but if you'd like, should I give you a name or a name or
Kelly.
Kelly, it was so lovely to meet you. I'm Amy Newman. You can feel free. I have multiple podcasts that are, a lot of them are open mic, call in, and so feel free. And eventually, this will be uploaded to that channel.
Awesome.
So it was lovely meeting
Thank you. Nice to meet
Definitely.
I hope you have a fantastic night.
you. Yeah, you too.